the thing is, we always get the best stuff. Like I was like,
yeah.
Like let's be on. Okay, so reach out on Facebook Marketplace, Messenger.
Messenger, yeah. No leads on Facebook Messenger. You can't do it with the newspaper account, so I have to reach out to people as myself.
Oh, I see.
And I'm rarely myself anymore, so I'd miss them. It's too bad.
I get it. Maggie, you're part of the news establishment of Moab, right?
Yes, the media cabal.
Maggie Mcguire, yeah. So, that's we haven't met before, so
it's all new to us.
Yeah. So why did you reach out to me then?
Because I think what you're doing is really fascinating and is very news adjacent in a way that I appreciate. I think you're doing a really cool thing. Yeah,
I find it interesting. My limited touching of Moab politics, there's layers of onion to it, and just with having Brian on the other day, it's like things that can't fit in newspaper articles.
Yeah.
Whole agendas we can kind of see. So that's kind of why. I listen to podcasts a lot, and I was like, dude, somebody, me and Oscar just were like, well, somebody should be doing this.
I mean, a lot of people say that though, so I give you guys credit for actually sitting down and doing it. It seems like that's the hard part, right?
Yeah. But making time and space, making time and space,
and allowing for you're kind of pointing to greater context. You know.
What do you in the Moab ecosphere, I look at the Times Independent.
Yeah.
Can we mention them?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay. So, they cover a lot of I feel like they cover more of the political side. And you guys cover more of the cultural happening side. Or what would your opinion be of it?
No, I think that's really fair. I think that, we both try to cover, everything reasonably, but certainly we're emphasizing different things.
Yeah.
So I think that's totally fair. The Times is a really wonderful example of a historic newspaper, way over 100 years, until recently all family owned, until recently printed here in Moab, which was really cool. That's very, very rare these days, so I think that's really fascinating and interesting to be kind of close to them. I have to drive all the way to Montrose to get our print newspaper.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. So I'm the idea of having professional printing in Moab is a fantasy of mine on those drives, But yeah, I think that for me personally, I really find the social stuff really really powerful, I don't think that it's something that is in any way less newsworthy in a way, if you look at historic newspapers, there's plenty of political stuff in them from 100 years ago that is important.
Oh, I love watching the not New York Times, the Moab Times.
Yeah.
The historical page.
Yes.
I asked Doug, I was like, did you know you put this in there? He's like, nah. And it was about cattle, cattle
100%,
abductions and stuff. And it was I was like, hey, Doug, there's Aliens in your newspaper.
Totally.
What?
They're awesome. They're totally awesome.
Yeah.
It's all, Kathy Gordon got sick and, they had she had a litter of puppies and couldn't take care of the puppies.
Yeah.
Everyone keep her in your prayers.
Yeah.
And they're really great, Yeah. And so I think that kind of stuff, I don't know why we would cut that out of our papers today. It's still just as kind of socially important and interesting,
Right. Well, I think there's things of scale too. When the size of your community, you start not knowing who has puppies and doesn't. So.
I mean, that's interesting though too, isn't it? Because I tie that a little bit to gentrification, right? When you stop knowing kind of the interesting stories that make a place vibe a little,
I'm really into this idea that I took an anthropology class and it's once societies, when do you experience crime?
Ooh,
and it's property theft occurs after 500 people. If you have a community of 150, generally nothing gets stolen in a certain context. And so I always think those numbers are, kind of interesting because I think about our population of 5,000 because I think people are oh, we're a small town. And like, I don't know you, but we're one friend adjacent.
Yeah.
And I will recognize you at City Market.
Absolutely.
That's kind of
it's a weird size, right? That we are.
Because it gives you the illusion that you feel like you know a lot of people.
Yeah. So. But I feel like you know just enough people to get really weirdly irritated and like not be able to resolve it in a pro-social way.
Yeah.
In a smaller community, you get irritated, but you're like, I don't know, man. He's the guy with the generator. I can't, I got to get over it.
Yeah.
But here you can really just be like, that mailman, I've got it out for him, I see him every day and I don't like it.
I think it's funny in the trades we have, like, I am in people's phones as Aaron Plumber.
Yep.
There's Juan who does counter, and he's known as Juan Countertops.
Yeah, totally, dude.
Timmy the Tub Man. There's just guys that you have. I'm like, this is how last names start.
Yes.
Like in 500 years it'll be like, yeah, where's your last Tubman name come from?
Oh, totally. My husband is one of the many Sams of Moab.
Yeah.
And so we have to do the thing where you go like Tall Sam, Bike Sam.
Right.
BLM Sam.
Right. That's funny.
Just go down the list.
Yeah.
But I don't know. The term that you used, like for a small community, I'm sure you hear it on Planning Commission all the time. And the one that I think is interesting applied to Moab is when people say, I moved here for its small rural character. And I'm like, I hear you, because it is more rural than some places, but it's not more, it's way more urban than a lot of other places. It's a very, like I say, a very strange size.
Moab's the biggest place I've ever lived.
No kidding.
Yeah.
How is that possibly
I
true?
grew up outside of a small town in Ohio of 200 people. And I grew up on like acreage right next to my grandparents' farm. I grew up on 20 acres, and that was surrounded by woods and cornfield.
No kidding. That's cool.
And, when I came to Moab, it was like, it was an hour to Toledo and very, very rural. One of the things I think that I hear with like the new county, like their new advertisement campaign, it brings me to this idea that we have a culture here that's exploitable. Right?
Right, yeah.
Like, that's the one thing, like, the whole do it like a local, we all kind of, like, rolled our eyes at.
They could have test marketed that one a little more.
Well,
sure.
It was like, they do they care, like, how the locals feel? Because it's like, yeah, I get the responsibility and all that, but there is an idea that's like I hear often from people here, like we just did, had Katie Murphy on, and she talks about the community here. And I just worked for a retired couple that had lived here in the past, and they always had a house here. And they're like, yeah, it's a great community. I keep hearing that. And I'm like, wherever there's something good, it's a commodity that's to be exploited.
Sure.
And I'm just kind of like, as we're talking about culture and stuff, it's like, yeah, what do you think about that? In terms of like capital being like, oh yeah, we have a quirky community. Come by, like, be a remote worker here. Buy real estate here, Yeah,
well, I mean, and I think that's like way my purview, honestly, because that's slippery words, right? The only difference between those things is like obviously like the framing that you're giving it, but that's all just verbiage, Another one that personally bothers me is the change from affordable housing to workforce housing, because of course the only value of that house is that it could possibly, house, is that it could possibly house, a future worker for, someone's business.
Right.
Which is like understandable, but it definitely shows you sometimes who that language is aimed at. You know what I mean? It's aimed at the people who are owning the businesses, not necessarily at people who might want to live in them,
Yeah, I've always I've struggled with that too, because I'm like, well, workforce housing's easy. Just pay people enough.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah, totally. Well, yeah, that should take care of, if you're doing a good job as a society, that should take care of itself.
Yeah, you always have to throw enough crumbs to the peasants to
Dude,
live. So,
I never thought I would own a business ever.
Yeah.
It's not a thing that ever crossed my mind.
Same.
Right? Yeah.
I was driven into entrepreneurship because I feel like I could not support myself on wage slavery here.
I don't have the temperament. I worked for the paper before I purchased it, and the previous owners ruled. They're wonderful people.
Was it Hala?
It was Hala, and Hala still is working for papers, still doing a great job. She's awesome. But I just was noticing in myself that I was like, I am a horrible business backseat driver. I would just like, here's how I would do it and blah, blah, blah. And that's not the person I would like to be. And
so you felt owning the paper gave you a latitude?
Oh yeah. Well,
so
now
what
I can.
That latitude?
My mom had a friend who was a piano player, and anytime that someone would like say something, kind of critical, he'd be like, "Sit your ass down and do it." Yeah. I guess that I wanted to be the kind of person that could sit my ass down and do it and not just like, Monday morning quarterback someone else's business. That's not cool.
Yeah.
I didn't respect that. So it's kind of neat now just because like I get to, make choices and do experiments and talk to people and kind of see where the chips fall. It's cool.
Where do you think you're driving it then?
I don't know. I mean, I feel really good about it just because like I like the goals that the paper has and I like the impact that it's already had on people. And, I talk to other people in the news industry. I try to really kind of connect up with, I'm part of a couple trade associations and stuff like that. And, there is a really big divide in news, about like who is news for and what is a newspaper for, and should there even be newspapers, and just everything, every given about news is like up for grabs at this point.
There's been a major reshuffling of business models. Yeah, which I thought was interesting that the model of advertisement was an anti, like it was a way to attack. Trade unionization.
Totally.
And I was like, oh, that makes, sense because it was like, oh, now we're not dependent upon.
I mean, that's the crazy thing about like kind of, I feel like a lot of people say, and papers are, unbiased and blah, blah, blah. And I'm not knocking that, but also I'm like, we just came up with that idea like not that long ago because papers usually came out of, original American papers came out of political parties and organizing. So each party would just have a newspaper. And like you said, paid newspapers, kind of penny papers and taking advertising was a way for someone to make a paper that wasn't literally tied into a political party's condescension, And so I think and then, like I say, out west, all of the papers were usually started by banks or other like businesses that just wanted to get PR to be like, y'all should move to this town. We have no people who live here, but we're going to make a paper so it seems like a cool place to be and like you'll move here. So like the era that kind of we came up with this idea of like kind of like, very, very heavily moral coded objectivity is like very recent. It's like literally like the 50s, 60s, 70s.
And I don't think you can step outside your bias.
No.
Right. And so like, well, it's kind of fun. You're kind of like a news nerd, which I am too.
Oh, great.
So
we'll get along. We'll get along great.
Yeah. So,
everyone else can turn this off, but you and I.
One of Epstein's favorite guests was Noam Chomsky. Manufactured consent.
Yeah.
I'm a big, I read that and I was like, oh my God, that made 100, so much sense to me about the news world. And so what are your what do you think your biases are? Moab Sun News?
Yeah. I was just thinking about this because I was writing down, I'm like, oh, like some public statements of like kind of a way to code it would be like what our values are or what our biases are. It's the same thing, different language, right? And I do like saying that the paper is pro-social in a way, like you were talking about, like kind of an anthropological lens. This one would be like a sociological lens. I
noticed like one of the stories you had was on like climbing routes and you're posting or you're writing about kind of things like that. So.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, the part of the reason that we wrote about that is the guy who wrote it lives here. You know, a lot of the people who read the paper are going to not only know him, they're going to know the roots. And then it's also good for people visiting, you know, instead of getting a guidebook that is just completely like generic. Even if they get the same guidebook, that depth of context and knowledge is really, I think, awesome and important and makes life more interesting and accessible.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, a lot of newspapers, for a lot of reasons, you know, kind of started trying to be this like authoritative, be all end all voice that like it's a real turnoff to me, you know. I don't think that it ends up telling people much, to be honest, about their society, or telling them like, hey, you know, basically when someone picks up my paper, I want them to know about the problems. We all know about the problems. I want them to have context on those problems, but I also want them to be able to go outside and engage with the problems and engage with their neighbors and learn a little bit more about not only the issues, but how to step outside and either take action on them or learn more, just do something with it, you know, rather than kind of a bummer report, which we all have read news like that.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay. Yeah. So backing it up. So where do you think you're kind of driving things with the Moab News?
I don't know. I mean, I think this year we're going to do a civics project, which I'm excited about. It's more just like similar to what I was saying, like tools that people can use. You know, we had a training last year that was that I got someone that I know at the Utah Investigative Journalism Project to run an open training on how to access like public databases.
Okay.
Because everyone talks about transparency.
Yeah.
It's like such a byword on both sides of the political divide.
Like this is how you do a grandma request. Or
well, and even just the open databases that are there, you know, from, you know, like looking up someone's like professional license, that's all open. Every election year, or, you know, whenever like kind of a county budget or anything is in the news, I hear like, yeah, and how much we should know how much people are paid, and I'm like, you do. It's on the like. Here's all where public, to find. It's all public. Yeah, and it's always been kind of funny to me that the transparency is so like kind of hip as like something we're like, I'm just fighting for transparency because, you know, we've like messed up a lot of stuff, you know, in America, and we've had, you know, ideals that we haven't quite gotten to, but like transparency is actually one that we do okay on government transparency.
The amount of like record keeping.
Yeah.
It's almost like there's too much transparency.
Absolutely.
And so it's like, here's what I see too. It's like you have those facts, and then it's like the spin of those facts, you know.
Right.
Two people can read something the same way and be like, well, that's, you know, BS to
totally.
That. And connecting the dots. In I haven't done it much, but there's some things that I feel like I connected the dots to that I was like, no way. Like that's what really good news journalists do, is like connect dots between data and like a position. Yeah. You know, so
absolutely.
Like, do you have those moments?
Like,
Yeah. So I want to hear some of them.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, and I really like legal stuff, which is, unfortunate for me because legal stuff is almost impossible to like explain in media, just because like lawsuits operate on totally different logic. I worked for the ACLU of Michigan way back, and so like dealing with like law and lawsuits I'm okay with it, but trying to like explain it in print is really, really difficult, but I do love going through old lawsuits and figuring them out. I was recently looking at litigation about Utah's grandma laws and seeing how people have challenged it and how those challenges have shaped how, you know, people interpret it, because, you know, legislation is really often very like mushy. It's not written very exactly. If it was stereo instructions for democracy, you'd throw them out, you know? So,
well, it's like, I always think about like the hunting laws, you'll read all these things and you're like, how do you want me to do this?
Right.
It's like everything I can't do.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
How do you like,
Totally. Yeah. And that's the thing is like how
like?
We expect people to be really like conversant and to know not only like how to deal with lawyers and how to interpret the law, but in politics and forming political opinions, to know where to even find this information. And, to Rumsfeld it, some of those are unknown knowns. There's stuff that's out there that exists. But if people don't know that it exists, like, what's the point? And the interesting thing is that when we did that open training with about accessing these records, the people I was working with were like, oh, well, this is like a training that we usually only give to journalists. And I was like, yeah, that's like a problem.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't see, this isn't like secret knowledge that only I can have, because I think that people are paying, and supporting news because we're doing a service like anyone else. It's a service industry a little bit,
right.
We're doing a service for them. I don't expect everyone to go out and grandma things.
Right.
But the secret knowledge I want everyone to have.
You're telling me how to be informed, what I should be informed about.
Hope so.
So you're kind of into this model of being like active, like not your viewers aren't, you would like to be like, hey, crowds,
100%. Yeah. And
how are other ways you're doing that?
I try basically every story, every page that we have, hopefully give me feedback, online is like, hey, if you know anything about this, or if you see something and you don't, always like, I want people to communicate with the paper a lot, because especially here in Moab, like, we're sitting on like a crazy like wealth of expertise on a lot of different things. A lot of people here are former public lands workers, former scientists. We've got a lot of like weird PhDs, and again, as the paper, I never ever want to put out like the vibe that like, well, here we're writing about something, we're the experts, and here's the definitive story. I'm like, I tell the reporters who work for me, I'm like, our real job is to like know a little bit more than like kind of the average person. And just every time you cover a story, you just stay that 2 steps ahead of the average person. Cause you don't want to sit down and read, 400-page report that's definitive.
Right.
We're cutting this up into things that are accessible to people, and I don't think that that's weird. I think that's awesome. I don't think that's something to be embarrassed by, that you're not the expert. I think it's something that is part of your job description.
Right. Yeah, and that turns into like the biases, right? Like you see stuff. One of the things I heard from conservatives here was that they felt like both papers were both tilted against them. Yeah. And I look at that and I'm like, well, does reality have a liberal bias and you're living in a like a fantasy land, or are they right? Like,
I think it's a really interesting question, because like, I was thinking of like, just like, like what kind of privilege and, whatever, unseen privilege that you or whoever might have. And for myself, we didn't have a whole lot, but my family was like extremely media literate. Wildly, this is what we did, so I do think that there's a lot of people who don't feel like they have access, even though of course, as the paper, I'm like, you do. I'm right here. You see me at City Market. But I do feel like there's a little bit of hesitance to reach out sometimes, and an assumption that one might be rejected or not be heard or something like that. And I do think that that's a little bit on newspapers to do better like outreach. Again, this is something that within the news world is a little bit not controversial, but it's definitely something that traditional papers they would not do. A little bit more like kind of community work, community organizing type stuff.
Almost like crowds. It sounds like you almost kind of want to crowdsource.
Totally. Yeah, we did a survey last year, and I'm going to do another one this year that was like super helpful for like letting me know what people didn't understand and wanted more. What how is that? Yeah. Oh, it was great.
Yeah.
You'll laugh because, sometimes it did make me laugh because like, again, we have such like I would say like a pretty high level of intelligent people in Moab.
We're slightly above average.
I think so. Right. I think so. There's not a whole lot of places I could just put NEPA in a headline and just be like, I'm not going to have to even explain that. Everyone knows it's fine. And so it made me laugh when like kind of the survey came back and like all of the things that people were like, I want more of this. I'm like, these are all hard. Right. They were like easy, the first one was, like, hey, a lot of reporting is around development or planning and zoning. And that's extremely, as you know, extremely complicated and pretty technical, and they were like, hey, we'd want more coverage of this. And it would be cool to have more tools of how to like understand the process of this. And I'm like, y'all, that's really hard, but thank you. Thank you for telling me. I will work on it, you know?
I think there's just interesting stories here about, there's things I don't understand. I tried to call GWISA today because I finally was like, in our last planning and zoning, I was like, I'm looking at Brian and Trish, and neither one of them, I'm like, do you guys not know? Like, how many water meters are left? Yeah. I was like, can we put them, you have these rights. And I was like, well, no. If I built the World Trade Center's tower, do we have enough water? At what point will Ben Musselman not put another meter? No one can tell me that. And I was like, finally, I just need to call the water department and be like, what is that number? Because you may fight about it, but guess what? He's probably mandated by the state. I don't know that number. And I'm like, I'd really like to know that. Yeah. I think it should be posted right above our future land use map. Yes. And I'm like, because I think there's this dichotomy where there's people here who don't want any development. They just want it to stay as is, less tourism, all that, whatever. A lot of people that retired here feel that way. Sure.
It seems like that's human nature, honestly. But yes, go on.
Yeah, and then there's this thing so it's like water's weaponized as an anti-development thing. And then there's this other side that's like, we have so much water, we can build whatever we want. And I'm like, but if you don't plan, if we don't be like, you got 10 water meters left, then we don't know the proper action to take now.
Well, and both of those are like just basically weaponizing a lack of information for political ends. Right. And that is exactly where I hope that newspapers and just like curious people step in, because like that's not actually healthy for anyone. You know what I mean? Because if there is a fact out there and we just don't know about it, we're making huge assumptions because it, is furthering our political ends, whether we kind of know that logically or not. Yeah. It doesn't change the fact that that doesn't change it, like that fact is still out there and we're just having worse conversations. Right. But you sound like you'd be a good reporter. It's just literally that being like, I'm curious and I want to pick up the phone.
If I could redo my life, I mean, I would, I've always been drawn, like if I could redo my life, I think I'd be like, man, if there was any way, but nationally media's like, going in the dumps. There's new forms. Like, what are some of your favorite? What do you read? What do you listen to?
Oh my!
Do we need to reset?
Sear, it's not on camera.
Okay, we all go. All right. So where did we stop about your media diet? What are your things you listen to?
I'm like a horrible nerd now because like I mostly read like trade association stuff. So I read the meta news. I read the news about news now. So I miss out on a lot of the news because I'm reading about the news. Yeah. Which is kind of a bummer because, no one wants to talk to me about that quite as much. And sometimes, my friends are like, oh my God, that article in your paper was amazing. It was this and that. And I was like, oh shit, that's amazing. I didn't, that was one of the reporters. I'm so glad, Yeah, I'm like, I can't hold all this in my head, considering that, again, Moab's weird because, today I was dealing with a story about the high school swim team. They won the state champs. Yeah. It's pretty sick. Yeah. But then also, there's a fast-tracked like mine reopening, project going up, and that's like a BLM records request type thing. Mm-hmm. And then there's just like all of these other stories. There's local government stories, there's development stories, and all of those just are kind of like always up in the air. It's a little bit of plate spinning.
How much bigger could the paper be?
Oh, that's interesting. Like, in what way?
Like, I always thought there could be an investigative journalist in Moab.
Oh, yeah. For sure. Yeah. More here than some places that have one, I'll tell you. Yeah. Like, And just because it's like there's, an in-depth thing. So, like, I'm just saying, like, could you, could the paper be twice as big staff? And what's the constrictions on it? Oh, I mean, right now, the Sun is 95% still traditional print advertising in terms of revenue, which is like almost unheard of. So I'm kind of proud of that. A lot of other outlets had to, kind of like turn to like, trying to make money digitally, things like that. But we're in I think partially it's like real estate here, and partially it's just this is a print loving town. So I'm really grateful for that, because
and then you have a subscription model too.
We don't, actually.
Oh, you don't? Okay.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. We take contributions from people who just want to like reach out and support, and we'll probably do that particularly for like the civics work that we do. Yeah. Just to like be like, hey man, pitch in. Right. But really we get grants for some work, things like that. But it's all really like we're very traditional model. Okay. So that's really cool, because it means that we're literally just funded by Moab. And in some ways it's a limiting factor. I've done the math where I'm like, if I sell an ad to every single business, that there is a cap there. But I think that's a good thing.
And then, it's small local paper, but I could see some conflicts.
Oh, sure.
We got to go after these people.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And it definitely happens. I'm happy because like most people are pretty like aware, I try to be really even-handed with people, and so I hope I have a good reputation, and it's lasted me this long. Right. Because I do think that that reality is more complicated than we'll ever be able to put in a newspaper, So like, I do try to like let people know, and there's plenty of ways to speak out, Right.
One thing I always wondered is your editors to the editorials. How many do you publish them all, or do you?
No,
you don't. Okay.
We don't. Yeah. We don't, and I felt really strongly about that.
What's your criteria for like rejecting?
If you are, and I never want to say reject. I work with people. So if we can address issues, then we can do it. Definitely in COVID, that sucked. I'll be clear, because there were some people that, of course, felt very passionately about different like health recommendations and medical stuff, and that was like a hard no for me. And we still have somewhat a policy of like being more careful about any sort of like health related recommendations, things like that, just because I don't want to I've seen all of the statistics about how people consume opinion content. And if it's in the paper, it's in the paper. It doesn't matter if you slather the word opinion all over it. If you say editorial, it doesn't matter if you put all of the verbiage around it. If you come back to those same people, and they've done studies on this over and over. If you come back to those same people 6 months later, all they remember is that was in the paper.
So you're afraid of posting like misinformation?
Yeah. Yeah. So anything that is citing like facts and figures, we just want to know where they came from. Like, I think all of these things are like fairly reasonable, but they're very inconvenient and I understand for some people who are just like, they feel really passionate about a subject. And so I do always try to work with folks, to be like, we're not trying to like shut down. And there's a couple of people that I said, I was like, I think that you might be right as rain. I am not pushing back on the rightness, but we just do, if it's going to be in the paper, I want to bring it up to standards, and you should want that too. One tricky thing about a small community is, doing like little conflict of interest disclaimers. That's been a tough one, and I'm trying to write some language so that that's like more upfront, because I think that people will do it willingly themselves, and that's just like if you're writing a letter defending someone, tell us that he's your boss, you know. Like, I see. You know, very basic things that in other places that are larger, the editor. I'm sure you've read maybe policies. A lot of newspaper policies are that the editor has complete will to chop up your letter to the editor, that it can be edited for tone, it can be edited for length, that they could just put a disclaimer on. And that's for speed, right? Because these editors are like, I don't want to work with just a random member of the public, you know, who's maybe like a little bit of a maniac about this issue.
Right.
But it's a small town, and personally, I've just made the choice that I'm like, I will take that time to like reach out to you and be like, I think this would be cool to be in the paper. We just have to, I just have to hold you to the same standards that I hold myself. You know, I don't think that that's weird. And I would never, the idea that some papers cut people's letters to the edit them without getting approval just blows my mind.
I mean, whenever I go someplace, I'll read the local editorials.
Oh yeah,
that's where the good news happens.
Yeah,
that's where you can get real flavor for it. It's almost like the Twitter of the olden times.
And that's the thing is I lose out on some good stuff.
Really?
I try to tell them. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And we had one this past week that I told this
USGS lab leak.
Oh my God. So many like
COVID started right here in Moab.
So many like good, like funny, but also like contextually interesting things. Like I'm a nerd enough that like, and this, I'm maybe the only person to say this, is I stay awake at night thinking about if there's some historian out there who's trying to capture like horrible Facebook threads, because in a small community, these aren't like trolls. These are like literal, like these are the people who are talked about in the story that are in the Facebook comments. And I'm like, these are historically relevant. They're socially relevant, you know, like even that stuff I don't want to disregard, but I feel like it's a different thing. There's a difference between like a Facebook comment and elevating something to the level of like, you know, sharing a platform. I just think that everything on that particular platform, I'm like, I kind of want to hold it to at least like a factual basis. I don't think that's too much to ask. And again, when people are passionate and I'm like, you should want this too. And I will go out of my way to help you find those sources or phrase this in a way. I will sit down with you at Red Rock Bakery and, you know, talk it over with you. Yeah. I like doing that kind of work. Yeah. Yeah. That's the cool thing about having a small town paper. I don't know why you wouldn't. Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes there's, you know, like I was like way into the Twitter files.
Oh man!
And you know, some of the things that was coming out of that, you know, it's like, what's that mean on a local, local paper? Yeah, you know, so anyways, I think about that kind of sometimes.
I mean,
you know?
like I say, I was thinking about
like, hey, what didn't you publish?
Oh, totally, like 100%. My husband and I joke all the time that like, there's plenty of stuff that I'm just like, I just don't see how that, I don't see the angle or the frame that like it fits with like, you know, there's like some political stories tend to be insider baseball. And I'm really aware that I watch all the meetings. Yeah. You are in the meeting. Yeah. The people I talk to are often also in the meeting. Yeah. And so like, it's really easy to get high on your own supply. And I think that's what you see at lots of papers is all the people I talk to care about this. I care about this. I watch this. So of course everyone watches this. So let's put that on the front page. 4 stories, 5 stories. Let's cover it, you know? Yeah. And I'm like, actually like a lot of people don't know anything about this and might not care. And maybe they should, but maybe they shouldn't. I don't think everyone has to care about everything. So I don't know. I try to just be aware of that, I mean, we talk about bias. That's one of the biases is I'm being force-fed all of the local government content, and I want to make sure that it is going to be, anything in the paper is going to be relevant, you know, and really tell someone something about the place and the time, you know, and that is, you know, a judgment call on my part And sometimes I have to eat that and just be like, yeah, it's me. I made this decision.
I was working across the street from a friend of mine, and he comes over, and we were talking about the water issue.
Oh yeah.
And what I find is like, well, we just need a moratorium. Like, we can't build another house until we figure out the water thing. And I'm like, dude, that's just not possible. Yeah. So it's like I understand. Like, and he's a very smart, well-read person. He knows what's going on, and I'm like, dude, that's just there's a lot of like ignorance, and it's because it's like complicated. It'd be like
everyone's look. We've all got like cognitive limits.
Yeah,
like we're not. I am one of those people that I'm like, we're not supposed to be experts on all this. Yeah. It's like not, I don't think it's humanly possible. Right. And I do think that that's why people get mad, because they're embarrassed.
And I think a lot of people are really mad about stuff around here, and you're just like, well, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and like, same. Sometimes, there is like a little bit of like, not hive mind, but like also like, when you're in a group and people are mad about something, you're like, I guess I'm mad about it too, and I don't know.
What do you think Moabites are like mad about?
Moabites?
What do you think we're mad about?
I don't know. I think we're mad that other people don't agree with us, just in general. That's confusing. I do think that like living in a place that is changing, necessarily makes people mad, because I think we're creatures that want to have a lot of context for what we do and who we are, get a lot of information, right? About like, what is the place I live in? Who are these people? Like, where do I fit in this? And when things are changing, you just don't have that as much, frankly, I mean, I was talking to the water people, but the city of Moab engineers, because like one of the things here is they built this place kind of so fast and haphazardly that the pipe, not sewer, but stormwater, they're just like, we have no idea where any of these pipes are, or go or anything, and I'm like, I just thought that was like a nice, neat little like thing that I think people moving here assume like everything's laid out. And I'm like, no, this like emerged. Like we don't know everything. No one does. No one's maybe hiding something. It's just, we're all sort of just trying to make do.
Yeah, I was talking to the Conrad Yanito. He's the main water guy for the city. And, like they're like, hey, have you seen these lead pipes around?
Oh my God,
you're in Audrey Bay's house. And I was like, I've seen them only in the like northeast part of downtown.
Yeah.
And they were all like abandoned, I'm like, but like they don't, like, where was that record? Did it,
Oh, can you imagine like now you have to like come up with like a system of like flagging that on a map, and you have to come up with documentation to let someone in the future know that you flagged it on a map, and what, like,
I think we just have this mentality that it's all like, you order from online and it shows up the next day.
Totally.
And I think it's part of our culture of that. And it's like,
Yeah, and really like, no, this is like a homemade city. You know what I mean? Like it's all there.
In some ways they all are,
Yeah, no, totally. You just don't know.
Back in Ohio, my uncle was the ditch master.
Hell yeah.
And that's a big deal in I noticed you're from Michigan.
I'm from Michigan, but I'm from Detroit. I'm from Dearborn.
So
I lived in Boulder, Utah.
Oh, okay.
Teeny tiny, like 200 people. Yeah. And that, man, water maintenance, ditch maintenance, that's a big deal.
So like, here we fight for water rights. There, it's like, who can get water off their land fastest? It's like how farmland's valued. Like, I can get my corn in. And my uncle was like, no one... He's retired at 70, but like it was like no one knew all these things, and he still gets calls, hey, what? Yeah. Where does which field A? Where's this ditch line in there? It's just funny.
I think that people who move here tend to, and I probably was one of these people, tend to think it's a Moab thing. And I'm like, honey, no, this is like, we're not unique in this. We're like, a lot of places are figuring it out. Like,
okay. So I was house sitting on 4th East and I was calling into the city like every couple days. I was like, dude, you got a water main break. And finally the lady was like, that's the irrigation system. Quit calling us. Mm-hmm. It's flood irrigation. I was like, I thought I was doing a good thing. And it was like, I was like, man, this pipe keeps breaking. And they're like, stop.
Totally. Well, I mean, I think that is funny. That's funny also when we're having kind of the Main Street flood problem. Cause I'm like, we built it like that just to funnel all the water right there.
Right.
You know, that's a hard thing to get over.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. All the systems, man. I like systems a ton. Like that's what I get obsessed by. So yeah, I get on it.
Yeah.
And like I say, once you start thinking of that, you're like, well, all of this is actually like so like horrifyingly complicated that like my family was like hillbillies from Kentucky originally. And like my Kentucky grandma would just say, it's a miracle we ain't dead every day. And I think about it all the time where I'm like, you're right, man. She's like, it's a miracle. Every day. Yeah. Just because like, these things are so hard to fathom that someone came up with it and there's no one stopped to be like, here's the operating system.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's funny. You're from Detroit. Like I'm about 45 minutes south of Toledo.
Oh yeah, so, cool. Mm-hmm.
Northwest Ohio. So.
I love I will include you in the Rust Belt, even knowing about your corn history. Like I love the Rust Belt folks here.
Ohio's weird because it's kind of, I call it the Middle East. They call it the Midwest.
Right. Yeah.
Because we have like Appalachia in there.
Yeah.
Like there's, in Ohio, the South starts outside of city limits.
Right, yeah.
Like my cousins, like they speak like, they have
country. I get you.
They have an accent, and it's weird that they do and I don't. Mm-hmm. But they went to the more rural. Yeah. I was in this different school system that had like little like the kids of that were like we were having our farmland slowly being eaten up, right. And when I was in the school, it was like that wave of the white flight.
You saw it.
Was moving into our area. Even though we were rural, and it was like, oh yeah, but I went to school with all those kind of like middle class kids, and so it was like, completely different experience. So what are you eating there, buddy?
Oscar, what are you doing? You're canceled. I canceled you. Yeah. No, totally. I mean,
I find a lot of Midwesterners here. How'd you find yourself up in Moab?
My husband moved here.
Okay.
He wasn't actually even my partner. We both were living in Detroit and knew each other there. He moved to Moab to do community rebuilds, and then I got gentrified out of Moab of Detroit. I had a awesome apartment in a 1800s brownstone. I had a turret, like a round room, and it was in the attic, so I had the whole roof. It was rad, and it was $450 a month. And then they, developers bought the whole building and just evicted everyone. And then my flat, I saw they flipped it as a condo, and it was $450,000. And I was like, that sucks. But it means that I moved back to Boulder, Utah. So because I've been in and out of there since I was in my early 20s. Okay. Yeah, I have a lot of friends there, and reconnected with my husband. And eventually moved here, and we live downtown. Yeah.
Yeah, those bombed out. I mean, I grew up being terrified of Toledo. It was like,
oh, interesting.
You drive to Toledo, like my grandma would be like, you lock your doors. Like the button would be pressed. I can remember because the Libby Owens glass factory would do a factory blowout, and she would drive. She insisted on driving her Mercedes to garage sales. Yeah. Go to garage sale. She was like a poor depression person.
Love this.
And that Mercedes was like my grandparents' pinnacle of like, we made it. We crawled out of poverty. Like, and they would drive it but Toledo was like a place to be scared of.
Sure.
Right. It was like, oh, there's black people. They're going to rob you. You lock your doors. And, but it was like, dude, downtown Toledo is like, Toledo's just South Detroit. And it is just a bombed out factories. It's just like wow, we used to be an industrial giant.
Yeah.
And growing up around that, and then later understanding what happened there, like, we talk about news. My favorite thing, this is my chef's kiss, is every year some intrepid New York Times reporter goes to Ohio and can't figure it out. And I'm like, yeah, dude, that's why. Like, there was this reporter that goes to Loudonville, Ohio, and they were like, why are you she couldn't figure out. She goes to the union there, and she was like, why won't anybody talk to me? And the union head is like, I'm the only Democrat here. You're from the New York Times. You're pretty much the enemy, and none of my guys will talk to you. And she'll be like, I just don't understand why. And so,
you didn't, and you also didn't come to this with any understanding.
But it's like they're so out, they can't even comprehend.
I was thinking about that. That's funny that you said that. I was thinking about that, literally on the way over here, because we're sitting in a workshop, and I'm like, oh, I love that vibe, and just thinking about growing up and being around light industrial neighborhoods, which no one think are cool, but they're cool. Oh, yeah. That's what people point at, and they're like, this is the worst of development is light industrial. And I'm like, this is where people have small bakeries and tool shops. And these are real working class people, that aren't being pushed into a service industry job, I love that about the whole Rust Belt, is that even when the big factories closed, everyone still had those skills. You know what I mean? So you still have lots of machine shops. You go to Detroit, you go to bike shops. We still have lawnmower repair, small engine repair shops. All of that stuff is still really alive. And I'm everyone else needs to stop copying that. You guys are going to wish you had those skills.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. In my family, so my grandparents had a farm, and all my uncles, they left farming and went into the factories because they knew how to do things. They could weld, and it was like a pipeline. I think it's really interesting that those cities just sucked all the country people off, and the farms grew in size. So it kind of was it made sense. It was well, you're either going to grow your 300-acre farm to a 10,000-acre farm, get bigger, get out. And so you just do the numbers. Yeah, one person on 10,000 acres needs to be consolidated and people working it. So
it's a crazy time. I mean, like you're saying about your cousins, and I think that's people don't understand that about that area is that I'm Detroit's a southern city. Yeah. Because the majority of everybody there, unless you came from Eastern Europe, and that's where your people came from to come and work in the factories, your people came through the South.
The Great Migration.
Yeah, exactly.
Came up through there.
Hillbilly Highway, they call it. Yeah.
I worked with a guy who is from Georgia, and he was from the country, and we're kind of so this is weird, we're both country people. And he was like, well, my neighbors were black. And I was like, I can't fathom people in the country in Ohio being there was 2,000 people in my high school or in my school. We didn't have one black kid.
Sure,
there was none.
Yeah.
Because it was they were chased out. It was oh, if there was one, he was a foster kid.
Well, that's the thing. Everyone was we have to go to the city, I guess. Yeah,
exactly. And it was it was very segregated because I was you're from the South. I thought he was I'm realizing how much more segregated.
Totally. I mean, America is funny. We have a very poor understanding of the different areas. I mean, we're really big, and really weirdly more diverse than any other place for a lot of obvious reasons. But yeah, totally. I mean, where I'm from was very heavily segregated. Detroit and the town I live in, Dearborn, was literally the whole area was laid out by Henry Ford along race lines, which is crazy, where he's everyone's going to get to be middle class, but nobody gets to hang out with each other. Yeah. But That being said, like, I'm happy at the place that I lived. It's like I grew up with mostly Lebanese kids. I went to, like
weird Lebanon or Lebanese pocket in
and
Toledo
now because it was Lebanon, now Yemeni, Syrian, all of that. So I mean that's fascinating. There's lots of Bangladeshi in the old Polish town of Hamtramck, which isn't like it's the best of everything.
I have a cousin. I mean, he's 6'5". He is whiter than this table, and it turns out he's fluent in Spanish. And he's like, I'm Polaxican. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, in Toledo, all the Mexicans moved in this Polish neighborhood. He was like, you've been married into our family like 25 years and I didn't.
You never told me?
Yeah. He was like, yeah, my mom's Mexican. Blew my mind. And
that's
it was
cool.
Like, yeah, it was just funny.
I mean, I love that kind of stuff just because like you do get weird, not weird. You do get culture that you don't quite understand where it came from. Because when I came here, and this is like revealing my judgments a little bit, but I came here and I was a little surprised because I was like, whoa, like July 4th, no one does stuff, like there's not like a big municipal thing for anything, And then I just realized I'm like, oh no, I'm like I'm from the Midwest where like it's all like you were talking about trade unions earlier. I mean, it's all Eastern Europeans who had huge like associations for like putting on events, like in the town that
we have a county fair.
We have a county fair now, which is pretty great.
But compared to the Midwest, there's no.
Been to a Midwest or like.
No, you have not. You
need to see a demolition derby.
Yeah.
In Northwest Ohio.
Which I think they got one in San Juan County for their county fair. So we need to get on this.
Wow, there's a lot of Confederate flags. What's up with that?
I'm for it. When the county fair here, and I'm so sorry, Angie Book, you can quote me on this, is like it'll be a real county fair when there is a ride, or when I get a picture of a child holding a rabbit with a blue ribbon on it. And I have gotten neither of those things. I've been waiting. I want that picture, like I'm for it.
Right. So how do you think Moab segregates itself?
I think there's a lot of silos and people, there's sort of so siloed that people don't even know they're in a silo. They just assume that they know everyone.
Yeah. We talked about this.
Yes, we touched on it for sure. Yeah.
What do you see the divisions?
Age. I think a lot. I think a lot. And I think that that's a really interesting one because like this is a hard place to grow old in. And there's a lot of people who are really fighting to make a home here and not maybe thinking of themselves as old here, which I'm like, those go together.
Right.
If you want to build a house here, you also want it to be a place that you're going to get old. So I think that's really fascinating. I hear a lot from people where, I've known some people who have had to, go to nursing homes in Grand Junction or something. So being separated from the community that you really love, I think that's tough.
All right, let's reset it. There's making me broke.
That's great.
Yeah.
Green room just for Oscar.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, what I was going to say is, I will tell you this, is that I think it was Kalen Jones. It could have been Mike Duncan, but I'm pretty sure it was Kalen Jones on his bio on the city website until he was no longer on the council. But it clearly they had said, hey, you guys all send us like a bio and we'll put it up. And they had edited it to be third person, except they didn't edit his great. So his was nice and long about all of his credentials. And then at the end, it's like, and he's lived in Moab for 13 years with my wife. And it made me crack up because it just sounded like whoever wrote it was like, Kalen Jones stole my wife. And he's lived there for 13 years with her. And I'm like, I loved it. Yeah. But yeah, no. What were we talking about?
We were saying how you see, you were saying how age.
Sure.
So, like you see a lot of division along age.
I do see a lot of division along age. Like Moab is, and I don't know, all of this stuff sounds like kind of so, what is word? Like stereotypical, but like, Moab seems to be a place that people like to discover. You know what I mean? Like that vibe where it's like, we're building the culture right now. And so it's really easy to forget, like, no, like people did this before, not unlike you are doing right now. I just happen to really like those connections.
I feel like it's like the same type of person going through the ages.
Yes, you're totally right. Yes, yeah. You're right.
Like
you're right.
The base jumpers of today were the miners of yore.
100%. I do think that.
Yeah. That's
this is what's making me unpopular at parties now, because when everyone launches into the hater circle, I'm the one saying like, or we could have just turned 40. Seems like we just might be 40. I think that's why we hate all of this stuff. They're like, no, I hate it because it's wrong.
I think the base jumpers are a funny group because it's such a dangerous sport.
Yeah,
and it's indicative of their shitty outlook on I'm like, dude, well, we might not. It's like put it all on red.
Yeah.
It's like, I probably don't have a good. I don't know, but I have a feeling it's like, yeah, dude, you might as well go for it because I'm not gonna am I going to build a lot? I'm kind of like, are you guys sad?
Yeah. No, and I think it's probably a lot of different things, right? But I knew a base jumper when I first moved here. When we were still living in a classic Moab, lots of people live here house, there was a base jumper who didn't even live there. He was just crashing there. Who was like, but he was like, oh my God, my girlfriend. Same conversation. He was like, yeah, base jumping. It's just I live on the edge. I don't know what's tomorrow. Lots of stereotypical base jumper stuff. So if I die, I die, but I want to know I've lived,
Right.
And in the same conversation, 5 minutes later, he's like, yeah. My girlfriend left me. She said she didn't see a future with me. I don't know what that's about. Yeah. I was like, babe, maybe you keep talking about dying. Maybe that's it.
Yeah, I feel like I came in on a Gen X, the tail of a Gen X mountain bike thing where it was like, it was kind of the same attitude.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like,
climbing had that, right? Yeah. My husband and I talk about this now because it is funny that those it's media, right? Those that vibe of that media, even now that kind of these sports are very normal and conventional, you could see that kind of the businesses want to kind of keep that edgy vibe, even when it's maybe telling the very users that they're selling bikes or whatever to do stuff that's not in their best interest. So it's a weird balancing act.
Yeah.
I don't know. I see that in movies a lot. There's a lot of in media is there's the really difficult thing that, God forbid when someone dies, it's really difficult because everyone kind of has to revert back to the he died doing what he loved. And I'm like, that's just bad philosophy. That's bad rhetoric that doesn't make any sense because so did the crackhead down the block,
right?
That doesn't. So I think it's interesting what people do, but it's definitely complicated.
Yeah, I view base jumping as the perfect it captures the moment of the new generation.
It's interesting
because it's biking, was it ever really that dangerous? Climbing, you have a rope. Yeah, it's dangerous and extreme, but it's just man, I really feel like the younger generations are pretty screwed.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And base jumping's not that popular, is it?
But it just seems to be a lot of people do it now. It's now a thing, and there must be, has to be a supply of bodies.
That's true. I think it's base jumping is one of those things that's deadly over time, right? I think my little niece from whatever Dearborn who came out here and wants to base jump once strapped to Sketchy Andy, to get a Instagram photo, probably is not going to die. I think that the odds are pretty good she's not gonna. But the people who are I'm in love with this now and I squirrel suit, that's really when you're that's the clock starts ticking then.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that's true of all of these outdoor, I don't know. Let me just say, I did not move here for outdoor recreation. I'm an indoor girl.
Right.
So
No,
all of that sort of puzzles me, Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny, Moab always, the county's always talking about its brand. And it's that's definitely in the brand of extreme sports, and so it's it tracks extreme type of people. So
yeah, and I mean, I think that that's also like really interesting because it's like, you know, I know that the Chamber of Commerce was trying to do. Have you talked to them or heard about like the things that they're trying to do with UTVs at all? Where like
what?
Well, just one of the things is they're like, hey, what are like the problems and like kind of, I think they did a survey of like, you know, other user groups, and they were like, well, like the UTV people, they just rent something and they don't know where to go and they don't know how hard anything is. They have no context, and that makes them like make bad decisions. And I kind of thought that the Chamber of Commerce was interesting. I don't know if it'll work or not, but it's a cool idea, is that they were like, let's assume that that's not like a moral problem. They're not like maybe renting a UTV and just being like, I like being ignorant. And like, they were like, let's first like maybe like give them better signage and like come up with a way of like, you know, a difficulty rating star system, the same like Jeeps and the same that.
Well, that's
everything.
what happened in mountain biking.
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
Like,
I do, but it's just funny to like jump all the way from like, hey, here's this user group, they don't know what they're doing, to, and like you have like a split in the road between like, you can just take like the moral thing, and maybe like we were talking about earlier, maybe it's just like intellectual exhaustion where you're like, I can't think about this anymore, so I'm just going to say they're bad people.
Yeah, I feel like there's people in Moab that view the OHV people as like ignorant redneck Trump supporters that like are like they see them as, oh, they're entitled to drive off trail and stuff, and it's like, do they just not know? You know?
Literally, you do have to ask first,
Yeah.
in my opinion, before you get mad.
I just think it's like, I view somebody up in Salt Lake who's been stuck on I-15 that they just want to see what it's like to press down on a throttle.
I mean,
you know?
Totally. And I think like, yes, it's good to be intellectually honest, right? This was about a Jeep, but there was a friend of mine, she does like a bunch of like, you know, very extremey outdoors things.
Yeah, and
from the crunchy.
I don't think that. I know I have OHV friends. I don't like when my mom comes, I rent one out and take people on it.
I mean, just like I say, I think that that's intellectually honest, because I had, my friend was like, she looked at, this was a Jeep, to be totally clear. But she was like, I just don't see what's fun about that. And I looked at her and I'm like, yes, you do. Like, this is not a secret.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you can say, I don't like that, or I am going to like something else. But I'm like, this is not like these people are completely incomprehensible to me. I'm like, this is the same as like, it just blew my mind that I'm like, you can't act like this is incomprehensible. That's too far. Yeah. That's too far of a jump, and it's not helpful, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Like with the Jeeps, the Jeep factory, my uncle worked at Jeep for 35 years or whatever. I see people come out from Toledo with their Jeeps, and they're like all like my uncle. They're all old machinists, and there's nothing to do in Ohio, right? So it's like they just work on their cars.
Yeah, dude.
And it's kind of like, it's more about the car.
No, and a lot of people don't know that Jeep people and UTV people don't get along.
In Moab, it comes down to this culture war that we saw with like, that's why I think the major difference between this commission and the last commission at the county was about this culture war between the hippies, the hikers, and the motorheads and the hippies. I swear to God,
I think it's fake.
You think that's fake?
I do think that's fake. I think that there are
How
actual
many hippie
things.
friends of mine like hate those things?
Oh no, I think that's real.
Yeah.
Hate is real.
Yeah.
Misunderstanding is real. But I think that when you actually say like, okay, do you know?
Yeah.
To who?
Right.
Who are you talking about?
Right.
Because these are the things that, you know, I've had people who I really care about, who I think are intelligent people, because I run a paper, call me and say like, you've got to write about this. This is a really terrible thing. And then when I ask like, what are you talking about? Where did you see it? Who is, you know, like any like fact, they're like, oh, I guess it's just like a vibe. And I'm like, no. No.
Yeah.
Don't base your life on like weird vibes that you have that the world is threatening you. Especially, we're like weird flesh bags, man. You could maybe just need a sandwich, or, you know, like that's trusting your subjectivity way too much, you know? And like,
You don't think there's like,
I think that there's actual differences of opinion, like that are like values driven, things like that. Yeah. But I think that oftentimes when I talk to people who are really mad, like they don't maybe know why they're mad. I'll give you like an example. Like,
well,
the election before this one,
it comes down to a philosophy of
Yeah.
how we use the outdoor, like how we interact with our environment, right?
It does, but it's also like based on, like I say, ignorance of the other person and a bunch of assumptions about how what those people think. And then, well, I think the opposite of what those people think. And so, you're defining yourself by a ghost.
Right.
You don't actually even know who that person is.
And it becomes this culture war in America where the other side's trash, right?
Yeah, and it's like, I just think that everyone should, I like engaging with how I'm bullshit, to be honest. Like, I'm like, point it out to me, and I would hope other people are like that too, because it's interesting. I know you had Lynn Jackson on not that long ago. He's a really smart dude. And like, I would say like a couple of elections ago, we ran an LTE from him. That election hadn't gone in the Republican way. And he just wrote an LTE that was pretty good. That was just like, essentially it was just like, I'm sad. It was like, hey, that election, I'm sad about it. I don't feel like I understand the way that this community is going. It feels like it's getting away from me.
Yeah.
This election bummed me out. And a bunch of my friends were like, can you believe he said that? I'm like, yeah, he's allowed to say that. What are you, like, you can't tell people that's not disagreeing with you on facts. He just is allowed to have his like own self. Yeah. He's allowed to be sad. Right. And it's weird. I see that, like I say, with kind of like gentrification in Detroit. There was an attitude that not only should you agree with the way things are going, but like you couldn't even like be sad about something, like my family's, from Detroit. And so a lot of the places that got whatever gentrified, renovated, I'd be like, I'm sad about that. Cause like I had personal feelings about that. And people would be like, well, it's much better now. And I'm like, those are two different things that I'm saying. You can really love this. I can still be sad about it. Those are not mutually exclusive at all. Mm-hmm. And so I thought that was really interesting. Just the desire to kind of deny other people even the right to be bummed about their own opinion. Yeah. I'm like, this is going too far.
We can all relate because I feel like most Moabites are a little sad that the place isn't the place that they moved to.
You switch the lens and we're all on the opposite side of some other divide, right?
Yeah. It's just and I often like, I wonder about the mechanics of this place changing fast, like because you can buy a house and move across the country, like that, and it is a small town, and you have in I feel like the culture here can like change really quickly. Yeah. And it has. And we keep watching it change and at like a really like I go back to Ohio where I'm from, everything's kind of the same. Yeah. Not like it's still like, they build a subdivision in this farm field and but I feel like the amount of change here happens really quickly.
No, I think you're totally right. And there's
where do you think where we're going? Like, the county, they talk about population trends. Like Moab isn't like, they're like, oh, it hasn't grown. And I'm like, I think about, I was telling Katie Murphy this. It was like, I got a couple neighbors. They're just like commodities traders from Indiana. Yeah. Is anybody counting them? And could there be like 40 more? Yeah. Which is a lot of people. So.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So what do you see the trends?
I mean, it's hard to tell just because there's so many different things, but it is a really beautiful, desirable area. And I always think it's confined by a valley, and I've certainly noticed, I've heard Mary McGann and other people just at county meetings casually be like, oh yeah. And, once Thompson is developed for, workforce housing, and I'm like, oh man, these are our plans. So, as someone who my husband and I are like lucky enough to have a house here, I'm like, to be totally honest, I'm like, having kind of gone through gentrification once, I'm like, yeah, that's probably likely to happen. And there's some real social problems that come with that, and we're all in this system, and there's just not a whole lot of things you can do to stop those things.
Right. And then that gentrification thing, I'm really into the idea that are in a K-shaped economy.
Oh, tell me more about that. I don't even know that term.
Oh, the people with assets are doing really well.
Oh, sure,
like,
yeah.
If you're in the stock market, you're doing good. If you're a wage laborer, you're not doing good.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, the whole country is experiencing that gentrification in a way. In like that K-shaped economy is happening here. And that's what I'm kind of like. This just really bothered me the other night. I was at a party, and this guy just moved in from Hawaii. Was like, oh yeah, these bums on the beach, the $20 an hour guys, they just don't do anything with their lives. And it was kind of like, dude, like, you live in Hawaii. Like, if you want a freaking latte in the morning, the $20 an hour guy is who's going to bring it to you.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of this casual classism that just like made me hate the guy immediately.
Oh, for sure.
And just was like, oh, it's a moral failing of theirs, and it's not like, I know, it's like, oh, is this the type of asshole that's now moving in?
Just like the moral failing. Well, but I see that, like I say, I see that in people I love. Friends of mine, is that like kind of the jump to making things moral is just something that we all got to watch out on, because it's just shorthand. It's lazy.
Right.
It's just a lazy thing to do. Usually it's something that we do because we're just trying to bond with another person, right? So we're like, screw that guy, right?
Yeah.
You and me, not that guy. Yeah. But it's something we all got to watch out on, because it's got consequences, especially in a small community.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And like I always tell people, I get questions about Facebook all the time because, I put stories on it and posts blow up and comments, yada, yada. And like people ask me about kind of stuff like that all the time. And in some ways, I think small towns are tough just because small town plus social media and the internet means that you can know all of like the weird political opinions of like random people that you come into contact with that you would have just loved, you would have liked them, but now you know too much about them. You know way too much about them. Like, it's probably improper how much you know what I mean? Like, the woman who is the teller at the bank, or, at City Market, you see them. And if you see them popping up on Facebook and you're like, whoa, and that becomes who they are, and I think that's not great.
I immediately know who
Do you know who you're talking about?
That was like that one and that one. Okay.
Yeah. And it's like, I just think that's like an interesting place to like kind of just check yourself, and be like, should I expand my definition of who people can be?
Yeah. Okay, so we got 10 more minutes. I was really kind of curious on like who your favorite journalists. What kind of
interesting?
So you're in the trade. You're reading the trade newspapers.
Sure, yeah.
Like, we could bash on the New York Times some more. I love, bashing on them.
I can read riot act on some objective journalism.
Well, we could also talk about how they're, agents of the Mossad, but not on this one.
Or just like I say, these are the people who I don't know. I do have something to say about that. Here, I'm going to put in my little, in this paper, I will. Which is just that, like I say, that 60s, 70s where everyone was like, oh my God, did you know that newspapers are the smartest and best people in the whole world? And we're completely objective because we went to journalism school because our dad paid for it. It's pretty amazing what we did.
In NPR voice.
I'm trying. I'm doing kitchen ladies.
Right,
yeah. But it's so funny to me because that's just so over-promising something you could never deliver, ever. You could never deliver it. And now when we've had 50 years of course, not being able to deliver it, when people are like, hey, I don't trust the news. As someone who reads trade journalism, there's articles where it's why don't people trust the news? Right. And I'm like, well, because you did this. Yeah. Own it. You made a promise. You couldn't fulfill on that promise. And people are acting completely logically. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so it's very irritating to me when I have that, when I see that phrased as the reader's problem. They must be weird, And I'm like, no, this is completely logical.
And now the information is more democratized, whether or not, that's good or not.
Yeah.
People have access to here's a funny thing. I mean, I thought I was cool in the late 90s because, like, I knew this website called InfoWars. And it was like Alex Jones.
Yeah, man.
And he was from Austin, and he coded left wing. And I was like a cool anarchist.
He was the wraparound.
Well, that's the thing. And I just remember him being like, and it was kind of like, oh, you know, it's aliens and lizard people. But he also talked about like these people that were like getting exploited by a cabal of elites.
Sure. Yeah.
And they were flown to an island where they do satanic sex acts. And I was like, and I was just like, thinking about it the other day. I was like, dude, Alex Jones kind of like, but now. Yeah. Like that way, because I was in the weird rabbit hole of the internet,
totally.
And now it's like, well, everybody anybody like, he's a household name. The media sources are everywhere from all different perspectives, and so it's kind of like, you know, you choose your flavor
exactly.
And I think it's a reinforcing thing.
Yes, so it can be, and that's a whole area of like kind of media studies and sociology. I think is really interesting. Is like, but I do think that overall. Personally, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Because I do think that we consume the idea that like, well, we just have to get the truth and everyone has to agree on the true facts. And I'm like, we've literally never done that ever. Yeah. It is an impossible thing that cannot be the goal.
Right.
That's a creepy, weird goal, not a cool goal. Just like develop better thoughts about this. Think better, and like trust other people. Because whenever we talk about like things brainwashing other people, we're never talking about ourselves. We're talking about the other folks who are dumb.
Oh yeah,
unless you're like a sleeper agent.
Unless you're a sleeper agent, unless you're a Manchurian candidate, yeah.
One thing as a middle-aged white man, you know, I was listening to a lot of Roman history, and
you're checking all the boxes.
Yeah. No, one of the things was.
Do you have the Fountainhead or Atlas Shrugged?
Oh, dude, I'll burn those books. Like,
cool.
Yeah. Anyways, I check out. The thing I thought was really funny was about the conspiracy theories in Rome. It was like, you know, like there was conspiracy theories on the street, and I was like, wonder what their media system was in like, you know, in that. And I'm like, okay, so we got. Yeah, maybe if you want to do another section, we can. But because I kind of am like, who's the journalists you like?
Okay. This is gonna make me sound like I'm like fake being salt to the earth, but like I like everyone who is curious, literally. You know, like because a lot of people aren't, to be totally frank. Or if they're curious, they don't allow themselves to like actually be like, well, let's look into that. You know. And so that is why I like talking to people and why I do invite people into the paper, because I'm like, I'm not curious about everything. I don't care about lots of stuff.
Yeah.
No one cares about everything. And so if like someone's really passionate about something and they're going to like go to the trouble of picking up the phone and calling some people and like I say, learning that little bit more than I know and most people know, that's awesome. I will always hold that up. That is great. You know, that's everything to me, you know? Yeah. And like, so there's like a lot of organizations that do like kind of citizen journalism trainings and things like that. Yeah. Those like get to the heart of what I care about, because I just feel like truly like getting information out is really important, but we're always going to do that as a species. I'm not one of, you talk about kind of elitism, and I'm not one of those people that's like, look at the news deserts and, look at the paper has fallen. And so therefore there is no more news. I think that's kind of offensive, right. There's news. There's always news.
Always been news.
There's always been news. There always will be news.
Yeah, that was the Roman thing.
Exactly.
Like people are talking.
Yeah, people are always talking, you know? And that's kind of what I always want is I'm like, whether you are called a reporter or like, I just happen to have a paper, which is pretty sick, but like, everyone, this is a function of being a human. It's not like a role or a career necessarily, know? And I just want people to take that seriously in their lives.
Yeah, for sure.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I think curiosity is like almost like empathy. It's something that can be strengthened. It's a sign of intelligence. Yeah. And, that's cool that here one of the major brokers of information here in Moab.
It's the truth.
Thanks for showing out. I thought you were going to be like, dude, I'm really into Alex Jones too, or something.
Oh my God, no, dude. One time I was driving through Kansas and I listened to Alex Jones, and you probably know this better than most. Is that I would listen to it and I was like, oh, this is way weirder than I thought it was.
Oh yeah.
Where he was like, so anyway, there's witchcraft and they're making robot bodies with human teeth.
Right.
And I was like, oh, I thought this was about politics, but this is different.
Yeah.
No, I think that wraparound is I think interesting and something that is relevant in Moab too, y'all.
Yeah. One of the funny things for me, what kind of got, like, my dad knew Martin Luther King and stuff. He was like a social justice.
Cool.
But he was a minister.
Yeah.
And so
awesome.
I was always like, there was always like Yitney Reader in the bathroom, and I'd be reading it. And then what happened, so I dropped out of college, and like my ex-wife was a part, like they had one of the first organic farms in Michigan.
Oh, interesting.
And it was, her dad was this crazy hippie. They brought Maharishi Mahesh. It was called the Divine Dairy.
Hell
it was in Hastings, Michigan.
Oh, and I think did they have some raw milk controversy?
Probably. For sure. Well, and so there's this thing. We're not recording, are we?
We are.
Oh, we are?
We've been recording.
Oh, I thought we were done.
Let's go for it.
Oh, okay. So talk about the RFK. The
I would tell you if we weren't recording.
Okay, the RFK, the hippie pipeline to conspiracy theory. I was down on their family farm, and the neighbor, I wanted to buy, like, we were having a woodchuck problem, and I was like, man, I need to buy a gun. And we helped there was this one elderly man down the road, and he, my father-in-law was like, oh yeah, Jim probably sell you one.
Sure.
And okay. And I was like, he brought me into the back, like this vaulted room, and it was like, well, do you want, like, what are you doing? You want to take out the president, or do you want to, like, shoot woodchuck? Yeah, I'm taking out woodchucks.
Yeah, narrow it down.
And so, like, dude, these people were in the Michigan militia.
Oh, hell yeah.
They were like, Timothy McVeigh was in these circles, and I was like, what? I'm just in, like, the backwoods thing. We sold soybeans to Terry Nichols.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was like this weird pocket of like patriots. And it was like in the, might have been 2000.
Yeah.
And you're just like, that was kind of like.
I think those overlaps happen all the time, though.
Yeah.
Like, I listened to San Juan County. Mm-hmm. There's interesting stuff there about like kind of their history and over policing. You saw Ammon Bundy, one of the Bundy sons, was like pro Black Lives Matter because he was trying to be intellectually honest. Where he's like, well, they're complaining about over policing. That's what I'm complaining about too. And so like those overlaps are really fascinating, and it's better to just acknowledge they exist rather than pretending like, well, we're real and those other people are faking.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah.